Hi and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name's Amanda. If you've been here before, well, welcome back. So I'm doing a getting ready with me again because the last one I did, which was I just broke it out, that I did on Ed Campus seemed to have been sort of received quite well. So I thought I would do Jodi Arias. Now I've just done I think 5-part series of her on my podcast called Monsters Who Murder. So I thought I would actually just sort of go through that case whilst I'm getting ready. Now, all I've put on so far is some Marijuana oil, whatever it's called. I never know. It's from Tarte. I'll put it in the details below. And I hope that my battery lasts this long. So let's get started. So as I said, we're going to do Jodi Arias. Let me start with my, this is my favorite, which is e.l.f. Primer. So on June 4th, 2008, 30-year-old Travis Alexander was murdered by his ex-girlfriend Jodi Arias. Now, they'd spent most of the day together, which actually started about 3 or 4 a.m. They'd spent some of the time sleeping, some of the time making out. I know that YouTube doesn't like certain words. And they had spent some time filming themselves. But later in the day, when Travis headed for the shower, Arias continued to take photos, and then he ended up getting murdered by her. Now, in total, Travis was stabbed 27 times at least, and the injuries included severing his carotid artery, and he was also shot. Now, he had also sustained numerous injuries to his arms and his hands because he had actually tried to fight, and later when they actually found his body, there was quite a lot of evidence of the fight going on. So while he was slugged in the shower, he was actually shot in the head. So let's go back. What I thought I'd do is I'd go through the timeline, and I've got to keep going on my face, otherwise this is going to take way too long. So we're going to start this case. Everything I own has dog hair on it. So this is my face tape. Let's get on camera. There we go. So this is, it's going to come up quite light on my face, but it does actually darkening once I do all of my powder and everything. So let's start the case in September 2006. Now, both Travis, I should call him by his first name because he is the victim, Travis and Arias had actually attended a conference. Now, he was there as part of his job. Not quite sure why she was there, but they did meet there. And it's important to note actually that Travis is actually a devout Mormon. Now, this is going to play quite an important part in this episode. So, and Travis was there. He's actually a motivational speaker. And Arias actually, before she was arrested, posted his very last motivational speech to YouTube. Now, this is when YouTube was brand new. I mean, we're talking 2006 at this time. So it's actually quite surprising that she was able to get that up. And this is back in the days when things took, 16 hours to upload. So she had actually done that. And so I'll actually put a link in below to that because it's quite interesting to watch. As you can see, I'm really, really pale now, but it will go once I get all the powder going. But first, let's set this a little. I'm using Revolution Beauty Banana Powder, so it looks like this. So ignore my nails. As I said, I just broke that one. So what else do we need to know? So they met at the conference, and it was obvious from the beginning that Jodi Arias actually fell quite hard for Travis. And they actually, whilst there, he was attending a formal dinner, and he actually invited her to be his +1. So, it was sort of very much from the beginning, there was those sparks that we all hope to get, though we don't want them to end the same way as this case does. And actually, after their meals, they actually spent the rest of the night talking. So they talked until about 4 a.m. So you could tell that straight away there was that connection that these two had. I'm just putting, now this is coral colors. This is really old and crappy, and it's almost done, but I haven't bought a new face powder yet. So, but on camera, it still looks pale here, but I know that on camera, once it's recorded, it actually doesn't look as bad as it currently does, and I really need to do my eyebrows as well. But anyway, so this was September 2006 that they met, and by February 2007, they were actually officially dating. I've I have so much powder left there, I'm going to have to put it aside. Put it over there. So the palette I'm going to use is actually Too Faced, so it's the neutral nude. So I'm actually cool in colors. I thought I was actually warm in colors, but I'm actually cool. I've found out. I really need to clean my brushes, but we'll try it anyway. So yeah, so by February 2007 they were dating, and as I said, Travis is actually a devout Mormon. So he was actually a bit conflicted. I'm going into this one here is my transition, which is called Petal. So they actually started to have sexual relations, and it was quite conflicting for Travis because he there's a bit of blow back there, because he didn't want to go against his religion, but at the same time he was so attracted to this woman that was basically on fire, and their relationship in the bedroom actually was quite electric, basically. So he felt conflicted by that, but it was something that he continued to pursue. But it's interesting that actually a lot of his friends knew straight up that there was something going on, that there was something about Arias that they just sort of didn't feel was quite right. And so I'll leave that one in a minute, grab another brush, tap in some more color. So I have the wrong brushes. So what happened then was that Travis actually told his friends to kind of butt out, because he believed that he had met the woman he was going to marry. He was positive that Arias was the one, and it wasn't long that the relationship went beyond what they had and started to become tumultuous, basically. So though they had this electricity between them, they actually started to fight quite a lot. And at the time, Travis lived in Mesa in Arizona, and Arias lived in Palm Desert in California. So they weren't exactly close, but they did commute, and they did talk often. And there was the phone calls and sex calls and all that sort of stuff that was happening throughout. But soon things got to a point that they actually started to have quite a lot of fights. And by I've got to go back down. Hang on a sec. Got to get our right date. So by June 29th, 2007, the pair had actually broken up. Now, they'd only been together for 5 months, but those 5 months were actually quite intense for them. And it come to a point purely because Arias was actually going through his phone often, and she was going through like emails and things like that, and checking his MySpace page, and just sort of keeping an eye on him, and she would question him. And like, there's many men who want their privacy, and though she would later say in her arrest interviews that she never found anything incriminating, that he was often pursued by women, but he didn't seem to sort of didn't seem to sort of reciprocate that attention. But she still spent a lot of time basically stalking him while they were together. So then they finally actually broke up, as I said, in June 2007. And actually at the time, just before they broke up, one of Travis's friends actually took him aside and said to him, I'm worried that she's actually going to kill you. Like, I think that, you're in danger, that, she is what we used to call in the 80s and 90s a bunny boiler, which is a reference to the film Fatal Attraction. And he tried to tell Travis in confidence. However, what he didn't know was that, I just bashed the microphone. What he didn't know was that Arias was outside the door listening to every word they said. So, there was that animosity that she felt towards his friends because of things like this, that she was concerned that they were going to turn him away from her. And, eventually they did break up. But what happened then was, just a few weeks after they broke up, Arias actually moved to Mesa in Arizona. So, and everyone's like, why the hell are you here? You know, you've broken up with him. Why are you here? Even he had said to her, I don't know why you're here. You know, we've broken up, sort of leave me alone. And so it became obvious then that this was beyond just love, and that she wasn't the most stable person there was. So there was many issues that seemed to arise. My God, my eyebrows need to be done. That arose after this, and there was women that Travis started to date that would come home to issues at their homes. So there was things like one of Travis's friends had their tires slashed. Another one, she continued to play knock and run on the front door. And so she would knock on the front door, and when the person went to answer, she'd already taken off. So there was things like that happening. And now they were never proven that Arias had done these things, but it was the assumption at the time that she was the person that was causing all these issues for all of Travis's friends. Now, one of these things here, I have a brow thing. Now, this is called Unbeliever Brow from L'Oreal. I got it in a subscription box. So we'll continue with this. So anyway, she didn't stay in Metza for long, and actually ended up returning home because people weren't allowing her access to Travis. So she sort of went home with her tail between her legs. But what the others didn't actually know was that Travis actually continued a telephone relationship with her, and there was still that sort of connection, and there was no way that he felt that he could give her up. He just wasn't ready to do so. And though all of the signs were there, I mean, we're seeing this in 2020 hindsight, but obviously at the time there was absolutely no way of knowing that that is where this was going to head. I don't know where I just put my spoolie. Oh, it's in my hand. No, it's not. I don't know where I put it. Okay, we're going to have to be a little bit... Oh, no, there it is. So anyway, by early May, we're talking 2008 now, the pair actually had a huge fight. So though they'd been sort of secretly still dating, and Travis was actually seeing other women at the time, they actually had this huge fight. Now, no one actually knows what this fight was about because both of them had deleted the conversation, but at the same time, people were able to, like his friends were able to get into some of the conversation later, and they were able to see that he actually called her he called her a sociopath. And now people often use sociopath because they don't want to call someone a psychopath, thinking that it's actually somehow slightly like less bad. But it's just one of those things that it's not funny because we are talking about a death here, but I find it funny that people sort of make that distinction between a sociopath and a psychopath. Now, I actually talked about the difference of those in my Ed Kemper episode of Getting Ready, so you can check that out there. And then in May, the end of May 2008, was around 28th, the gun owned by Jodi's grandparents went missing. Now, there was a report filed and an investigation done by police, but we're getting there. The gun was never found. Now, this will play an important role when they interview her later, and we'll get into that in a second. But it's interesting to note that this gun disappeared on May 28th, 2008. So around the same time, Travis was actually planning a business trip to Cancun with some of his friends. Now, they were all sort of going at different times, and Travis was meant to go at the start of June, which is when he was killed. So he had planned to take a friend with him, and I'm not going to say what her name is because she doesn't need to be dragged into this. But they were meant to go separately and meet up together. Now, the friends that arrived early started to plan what they were going to do whilst they were there. And whilst they were there, they would send messages to Travis saying, oh, how about we do this? How about we do that? And Travis wasn't answering. And they did actually start to get a bit concerned. And then they thought, because this is in the days before, actually by 2008, we all had mobile phones, didn't we? But, that they were sending him things via MySpace and stuff like that, as well as via phone. Don't like that at all. So let's try with a different brush to pack it on. And Travis wasn't answering. No, this is not going to work. We're going to have to pull out the fingers. Oh, sorry, that sounded dreadful. He wasn't answering their calls. So they sort of made all of these plans for him, knowing that he was going to turn up. Now, this is around the 2nd and 3rd of June. So then on the 4th of June was when Jodi actually killed Travis. Now, she had rung ahead and said that she was coming, and he accepted her to be there. So she arrived about 3 a.m. And so he had stayed up all night waiting for her to arrive. And so when she did arrive, he was quite excited to see her. And they got out the camera and they filmed themselves doing a number of activities. And then, according to Jodi's testimony later, she actually then spent the rest of the morning sleeping. Now, there was other people who lived in this house. So this was like a share house as far as I can tell. And Travis had sort of one wing and other people had different wings of the house. Now, according to Jodi, she didn't see anyone else in the house. Now, some of the other housemates had actually gone and done other things. There was one that was house sitting for his girlfriend's family. Another guy was actually new and sort of didn't know much about Travis, so they sort of didn't associate much. And, you know, there was things like that happening. So people were coming and going in this house all the time. And it wasn't sort of affecting anyone else. So, you know, people would come, people would go, and that's how it would happen. So on the 4th of June, sometime during the day, Jodi Arias actually killed Travis Alexander. Now, there was a struggle because there was not paint. Oh my goodness. There was blood found all over the home, all over the area that he lived in. Now, the rest of the people who lived in the home assumed that when they hadn't seen Travis for a few days, they assumed that he had gone to Cancun as he planned. And actually, one of the friends that were in Cancun rung Travis's home and asked the other guys, I just got a message, and rung the other guys and asked them where Travis was. And their response was, obviously, he's in Cancun. And they said, no, we're in Cancun and Travis isn't here. So then there was, you know, quite a panic then because no one knew where he was. Now, at the same time, where his family, his friends were deciding that something had actually gone wrong, Jodi Arias had gone to her new boyfriend's home. And so she had gone to visit him. Again, I won't share his name because he doesn't need to be involved in this. And she had sort of moved on with her life. Now, she had rented a car, which did play into the evidence later that they found. But at the time, she just sort of went on her way and headed to the boyfriend's house. And it was now he was killed on the 4th, and it was the 9th that Travis's friends actually headed into his home to see where he was, and that's when they actually found him. So it was quite traumatizing for what they found. He had been dead obviously for several days, and he was still in the shower. Now, the interesting part about him being in the shower is that is where the attack began, and that is where it also ended. So it suggests that either Jodi dragged him in there or chased him back in there. So we're not quite sure because though she later admitted to part of the story, i.e. that she was there when he was killed, she claims that someone else did it and she was there protecting them. So the fact that he ended up in the shower is part of the story that no one seems to be able to put a final stamp on. Anyway, so it's a couple of days later and they find Travis's body. The police turn up and everything. And as you can imagine, the first thing that Travis's friend said was the colors I've been using for the shimmer, I've been using the rose gold and the sparkling rum. And my dark color here, I've just used, it's called Truffle, which I also used in my eyebrows. Now we're just going in with a lighter color, probably the sparkling rum again, just to sort of give it a bit of extra sparkle to the lower lashes. But yeah, so when the police arrived and saw the body, and now you have to remember he's been there for 5 days, so the body doesn't look great. If you want to see the crime scene photos, if you head to my website, amandahoward.com.au, you can actually see them there. I do have them listed there. But the first thing that any of Travis's friends said was to find out where Jodi Arias was. They were in no doubt from the very beginning that she had something to do with this. So it was a few days later, I think about 10 days or so later, that they actually arrested her. Now, it was, here you go, yes, it was June 19th, so it was 10 days after the discovery of his body that they headed to arrest Jodi. Now, Jodi went through 2 full days of interrogation. Now, I've actually broken that down on my website and done a psychological profile of how the how the interrogation went, because it's quite interesting, because she starts off denying anything with the case, and then she heads into a moment where she, and this takes 2 days to get there, she actually gets to a point where she discusses that she killed him in self-defense, so that there was domestic violence, and she sort of went through a whole sort of story along those lines. Then she changed her story again. Right when we think that she's about to confess, sorry, this is a bit of a spoiler alert, right when we think she's about to confess, she claims that there was 2 intruders, and one of them was a female, and that they attacked and killed Travis Alexander. So that's the story that she ended up sticking to, and it's the one that she would actually get up on the stand at her own trial and say that that was what had happened. So they can always go for perjury one day for that if they want to, if they can prove definitively. Now, they know that she did it, and the way that they knew that she did it, the way that they knew she had done it, was that when the police investigated the home of Travis Alexander, in the washing machine they found a whole stack of clothing, but also they found some camera SD cards, and on those SD cards were some of the photos of Jodi and Travis in flagrante, but also they found photos that had been accidentally taken during the attack. And now those photos actually showed part of Jodi's clothing, so they knew it was her. So that's how they were able to get her in the end. And as well, they actually found her rental car and actually went through that too, and she knew and actually confessed that they would probably find blood in it. And that was when she actually had to go with her new story, claiming that she had been in the home with him and someone had come in and attacked them, and that's where it all went. So that's how that sort of played out. Sorry, my mascara just then was Elizabeth Arden. This is just a little sample pack I got in a fantastic gift last year. Now, this is very, very bright. This is a NYX. It's OB05, a Sweet Spring. So this is a blush. It is hardcore pink, but it actually doesn't go on that hardcore. So let's get that in there with a big smile. So she claimed that that there were these 2 people that turned up and killed Travis, and it wasn't her. And she claims that she couldn't tell anyone what had happened because she had to protect them, otherwise they would come and kill her, because she claims that they had stolen her license, which they hadn't, and that they were going to come back for her. So that was where she played that game. So just, going into a Mecca Max. This is Sunlit Skin Bronzer, so just to make me look slightly bit warmer. But it's quite interesting when you go through the interrogation tapes, and as I said, I've done it. There's about 10 hours of them in total, and I actually went through them all and broke them down for my podcast, as I said. But when the officers leave the room, she turns into a different person, and there was times that she was singing, and she was singing a song which I only know from Love Actually. And she would do headstands, and she'd, walk around the room a bit and sort of sit under the table and do things like a child would. Now, she is someone who is very interesting purely because she has no idea of how to be an adult. Now, she spent a lot of her time being sort of sex slave is not the right word. She spent her time being an obedient servant to Travis Alexander. Not that he degraded her, and there's arguments that he did, but there is a lot of arguments that claim that it was sort of all at her instigation. And so when she was being interviewed, now she was interviewed twice by a male detective and once by a female detective. Now, the male detective got so much more out of her than the female did. Now, they had two very, very different interview styles, but she had no interest in talking to a female because she knew that if there was a male in the room, she'd bat her eyelids and she'd do, you know, all the cutesy stuff, and he would play along. And Detective Flores did an amazing job playing her at her own game. Let me just put a little bit of concealer on so we can fix up and around these eyes a little. So he played the game very well, and she had no idea that he was playing her own game. And so that is how they were able to get her as close to a confession as possible, because she was not going to give up, that's for sure. She had no plans on confessing to anything. And, you know, she would cry, and now every time she would cry, it had nothing to do with Alexander at all. It all had to, with Travis, it all had to do with her saving her own face. And that included this brush. It's so disgusting. We'll grab this one. So this included her playing the victim and saying, you know, oh, that she can't tell anyone what's happening because, you know, they'll come after her, and, you know, she's just a good girl who did some naughty things, and that because she actually converted to Mormonism with Travis actually baptizing her himself. So I mean, she was all in, and I think she found it very frustrating that he had sort of chosen, basically he'd said to one of his friends that, you know, that he was in love with her and she was going to be his wife. But then once they had had sex so often and everything, he decided that he wanted a virgin. So I mean, it's a pretty crappy thing to do. But anyway, that is part of the story, and that's how that happened. And I didn't bring any highlighter. I always forget something because I bring it in from my other room and I have no highlighter whatsoever, but we'll just do a little bit in the corner of my eyes with this. Do the best we can. Let's find a brush that's not covered in something darker. So something happened in the end, and we're not quite sure, and this is what no one knows. We will never have the motive. Now, we know that there was, you know, it was a tumultuous relationship. We know that there was issues between them, and it stemmed a lot from Travis's religion and the fact that Jodi wasn't compatible with that, you know, and he basically won his cake and eat it too. And then she wouldn't take no for an answer when things got more serious. I can't believe I didn't bring, I have so many highlighters. I cannot believe I didn't bring one in. Let's just check one more time. I have like 15 of them. You should see my puppies. They're curled up beside me. They're so cute. But anyway, we shall move on because I didn't bring any of my highlighters in. So we're going to have to sort of work it out. The light isn't as good as I can possibly get it, but we're going to have to deal with it the way it is. So let's move on to the lips. I live for my MAC in Twig. So this is my favorite lip of all time. It's fun. Whoops. Oh, I thought I stopped the recording then. So yeah, so that's where we ended up in this case, is that he wanted her until he realized that he liked her as, you know, as a sexual partner. But when it come down to the seriousness of things, and don't like this one at all. I don't know why I keep using these crappy ones. When it come down to it, he was not going to marry her because she wasn't that sort of girl. You know, he saw her as just that sexual plaything. And when she wanted something more serious, now this is Elizabeth Arden, Naked Nymph. Ironically, the color I picked for this, oh, this is too nude too. I have to find some more of these things. I have a whole stack inside, but I didn't bring them with me. This is going to be too pink. Yep. So it basically, from what we can gather, and if you go in and look into the cases, oh, that's better. If you look into the cases, absolutely, it comes down to that when she wanted to settle down, he decided that she wasn't the one because she wasn't stable. And when friends of his were telling him, you know, be careful, you know, we think that she's going to end up killing you, and she actually does. I mean, it makes you wonder, like, she puts on this persona of this young girl, and it's actually quite amazing that that's the role that she wants to play. That when it comes to being adults, Travis didn't think that she was that great. Now, as you can see, I always jump my lips with darker pen around the edge because it creates an illusion of plumper lips, because my lips are tiny, tiny, tiny. Anyway, so in the end, after the 3 interviews over 2 days, she was charged with Travis's murder and went to trial. And she was found guilty. Now, they had tried for the death penalty. Instead, she got life without parole. And oh, look at this. And this is why we set everything with powder, so we can wipe it all off. You'd think I didn't know where my lips are the way that I've just done this. But anyway. And there she sits. Now, it's been over 10 years now that she's been in jail. And she's still quite popular. I actually wrote to her before we did the episode hoping to get some information. Anything was fine. I didn't care what show was going to show. But instead I got this letter back from her saying, yes, she will get to me kind of thing, and it'll be a while because she has lots of people who write to her. But it was interesting to find that her letter was written as if she was a teenage girl, and I think that actually said a lot compared to what she was. I can't believe that I jabbed my lips so bad. That she did as bad as, that she wrote as poorly as she did. I just found it amazing that she writes like the teenage girl I thought that she was portraying, and it's absolutely true. Okay. With more powder, not this one. I'm just got to get some powder onto that. Where's my baking powder that I hid so I didn't knock it off? Now I can't find where it is. So she is still in jail. There's no current talk of any appeals or anything at this time, as far as I'm aware. She still maintains that she did not kill him, and that she is protecting someone because they're going to kill her family if she gives the name. However, there is absolutely no evidence of anyone else being in the house at that time except for her. And, you know, and that includes the photographic evidence. Now, the photos are actually a timestamp, so it sort of gave them an opportunity to work out when it had happened. Again, as I said, I have those photos on my website, amandahoward.com.au. I think we're kind of done. Lips aren't great, but they'll do. So I'm conflicted with what setting spray to use. You know, I bought no highlighter, but I bought two sprays in. So we use one of these. This one is, I can never say this one, Morphe Brushes. So this one, let me bring it up to camera. So this is beautiful in rose gold. And this is my Fix It Pink Light, which has rose gold in it too. Just try not to shake it in front of the camera. I use this a lot. This is my favorite, though it looks like I haven't used it, but you don't need a lot. So, open my mouth. I got that all into my mouth. That was great. And this is actually a really light spray. I do actually prefer this one. This can, there we go, got it. This can actually go under your foundation and primer as well. I actually did do that, which is why I was quite sparkly and nice when we started. So that has like the lighter spray. You can barely even feel it. But anyway, we are at the end. My face is done. There is nothing much to say about it, or don't read it aloud. I've already read it all. So there is bits and pieces, like she did a couple of news articles, like what was it, 48 hours. She did a couple of interviews, and she's done a bit of press. She is quite savvy because she knows how to play that that sex vixen kitten sort of persona, which seems to get her things that she wants. So she does do that. But yeah, it's just an interesting case. As I said, we did a 5-episode series on her interrogations, not going outside of that. I mean, obviously, we did talk about the case in the context of the interrogations, but it's quite interesting to do such a deep dive. The plan was to only do 1 episode and end up being 5 just by accident, purely because it was such a fascinating case to break down. So anyway, I'm done. Thank you for getting ready with me. I'm actually getting ready to do a couple of unboxings on my normal channel. So I didn't plan on doing crime stuff, but it's what I do and what I love to do. As you can see, we have a different background to what my normal beauty setting does. So this is my podcast office. So this is where I film Monsters Who Murder. So you know, I've got Charles Manson's head. We have Frederick Deeming here. We have an execution cap and a couple of bits and pieces. So if you want to see more of this sort of stuff, so let me know. It's actually part of the museum I have. It's called Memento Mori, which is a museum, a traveling museum I have that goes around the country. Of course, with 2020 COVID and everything, it's not going far at the moment. But it's what I do during my day job. So I thought I would get ready, saying I'm doing a crime thing. I thought I'd do it in the crime zone. So anyway, thank you for watching. If you did like this, please like, share and subscribe. If you didn't like it, then you don't have to watch it again. But I hope that you did, and I hope that you're going to have a great day, and I hope that you got ready with me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.